The final account of a minor conservatorship. Hi, I'm Darren Findling of the Probate Pro, and we're going to examine Scale Form PC 648. Scale for State Court Administrative Office, PC for Probate Court, Form 648. This form is readily obtainable. You can contact my office. We'll give it to you for free. This probably is going to be used when somebody is 18 years old and it's time to turn the assets from their minor conservatorship over to them as an adult. That's the purpose of this particular scale form. Minor conservatorship, it's a final account, it's a consent and order all wrapped into one court form. With all of the scale forms, they are created by various statutes and court rules. As you can see from the floating yellow arrow, I've identified the statutes and court rules that give rise to this particular form. It's really important to understand how this form works, and we strongly urge you to both read the statutes, the court rules, and to work with a skilled, competent probate lawyer to be assured that you know how to fill this form out. It's really frustrating doing it, submitting it, only to learn that you've done it wrong. So this particular form, again, is used in a very narrow context. It's used as a final account in a minor conservatorship. A conservatorship is in which a fiduciary is managing assets on behalf of a minor up and through their 18th birthday. And when they reach 18, a decision has to be made. Are they competent and can you turn over the assets to them? Or are there still issues in which there are additional protective vehicles that would be needed after the age of 18? So let's work our way through this particular form. With all of these forms, top left corner is the county in which the probate conservatorship is situated. The top right corner is the case number, the file number of the minor conservatorship. Minor conservatorships usually end with the letters CY. Here, you're going to type in the matter of the name of the individual who's under conservatorship, and mentioning that they're a minor, of course, and then the name of the conservator, the person that has been serving as the conservator during this period of time. Don't confuse this space with the minor's name. This is the conservator who is identifying that they are submitting a final account for their role as the conservator over the minor. It indicates that they've been serving as the conservator and that they're filing the final account from a particular date to another date. Usually the date on the far right is going to be the 18th birthday, the date upon which they have achieved the age of majority. The date on the left is usually the date following the last accounting that has occurred, or if this is the first account, then the date of the conservatorship letters when they were issued. So again, picking the dates are really critical here. The next section is a description of assets that have come into the estate, what we call income. Any income that's come in, interest, other forms of income that have come into the estate. The first section where it says balance on hand is either carrying the balance from the inventory, if this is the first account, or from last year's account. So you're going to tie those numbers together. On the right-hand side, it speaks of disbursements. These are the expenses that have come out of the estate. And usually in a minor conservatorship, there's a restriction for the use of funds. So typically these are tied to petitions in order for use of funds. So again, the income coming in, the disbursements going out. That shows the court, as well as the interested persons in the estate, what has come in and out of the estate during the conservatorship time frame specified above. The items remaining at the end, or itemized remaining assets, is a description of what's left over. This could be bank accounts, land, etc. And you itemize them. Now they should all tie together. So for example, where it says balance of remaining assets, it says in an asterisk, same amount as above. That above reflects to the double underlined section, the income minus disbursements. There's a balance of assets remaining. Those numbers should tie together. If they don't, it usually means you filled this form out incorrectly, and that's a common problem with these final accounts or these accounts. They're not tied correctly together. So again, using a calculator or a spreadsheet, making sure that all the numbers tie together cleanly is really important when completing this form. Let's work our way to the back side. The back side of this form is the request. It's the request of the court, because this is also a petition. It is a petition asking the court to enter an order. And in this particular case, the request states that it's the final account and all accounts previously filed but not yet allowed. So it addresses everything before. And you're asking the court to approve and allow those accounts as reasonable, and that the remainder of the assets be turned over to the protected individual, and that the conservatorship be terminated. So again, if it's a minor conservatorship flowing into an adult conservatorship, the assets would go from the minor to the adult conservatorship. If it's a minor conservatorship turning over to just an adult with no court protection, then that would be what was going on. Here you identify under the penalties of perjury, as all of these scale forms that you've reviewed the information. It's true to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief. The conservator signs on the right, and if there's an attorney, they're on the left-hand side. And although an attorney is not a requirement for any of these forms or any of these processes, we strongly urge you to work with a skilled, competent probate lawyer who understands how to navigate through the system to give you good, sound legal advice. The next section is the notice to the individual. So let's understand what this means. It says that the above itemization is a final accounting of the property that was managed by the petitioner while you were a minor. It shows both income and expenses or disbursements made by the petitioner, and there may have been previous accounts filed with the court that have not been allowed, but you should have received a copy. So it's warning you, don't sign this document if there's something not there. If you don't have the full breadth of the accountings before the inventory, if you don't have proof of what's going on, don't sign the document. If the numbers don't line up, don't sign the document. Don't be so hungry to get control over the assets that you waive your right to object. Number two, the court is not going to necessarily audit the document, review it, or to be assured that everything lines up and is done correctly. Three, you have the right, meaning the minor who is now an adult, to review proofs, receipts, disbursements, to ensure that the information contained in this account is correct. So again, don't just receive the money, make sure everything lines up and is accurate. Number four, you can object to part or all of the accounting. And if you do object, there will be an opportunity for those proofs to be brought before the court. And it says, importantly, if you want to object, do not sign the waiver and consent below. It's giving you a warning. Waiving and consenting means exactly that. You're waiving and consenting. So if you don't want to do that, don't sign it. So here the waiver and consent area says that I'm interested in the estate as the protected individual. I've received a copy of the final account of the conservator and any previous accounts that have occurred. So you're making that assertion, and that you waive notice of hearing and consent to the allowance. So again, you're waiving the opportunity to be in front of a judge, you're consenting, you're stipulating, you're agreeing. So don't sign it unless everything lines up and is accurate. You sign. Signature of protected individual means the individual who's now an adult who was under protection. The order section below, in essence, mirrors that which is above. The court finds that that individual who is the conservator has filed a petition to request allowance of the account and that all the accounts shall be allowed. The notice of hearing has been waived by the protected individual and that they have consented to the account, or if it's plural, the accounts, and that the accounts ought to be allowed. And then the order section, same thing. Final account and previous accounts are approved. Restrictions, if there are any restrictions, so for example, if the person died or is now under an adult conservatorship or under trust, that would be the section in which the assets are not turned over to an individual, but rather to a new estate or new fiduciary. 6, if a receipt is required to show proof or evidence of that transfer of assets, that is going to be required there, and there's a 7-day provision for the time frame to do that, to do so, which then allows for the termination of the conservatorship and the discharge of the conservator, as well as the bond. The bond is the guarantee of performance. So if there's a surety bond or a personal bond, the discharge terminates it, ends it, brings closure to the role. So remember, if you're consenting and this order gets entered this is the permanence of this. It's a final order relating to the conservatorship. So if you want to challenge things, don't sign, don't agree. 7 says there are no assets, meaning everything's been depleted. In that case, the conservatorship is terminated, they're discharged, the bond is canceled if there is a bond in place. And then, of course, a spot for the judge to sign and a date. These generally occur without court hearing because the consent is a part of it. Again, don't sign unless everything lines up, everything's kosher and looks good, because we don't want to have a problem where if you have a problem with where you want to challenge the conservatorship, you don't want to waive or consent to that right. With all of these probate documents, again, we urge you to seek legal counsel. At the Probate Pro, we're passionate about everything probate. If you have a question about a probate, trust, conservatorship, guardianship issue, any probate-related matter, visit us at theprobatepro.com or call us at 1-833-PROBATE.